One of the hardest questions we ever have to answer is, how do I know I've done enough? It's nothing to do with not caring, because we do. When you love someone, especially if they're struggling, it's very easy to believe there's always one more conversation you could have, one more way of explaining things, one more day you could stay, one more attempt that might finally make that difference. I've noticed that people who naturally take responsibility often find this particularly difficult. We don't just carry our own concerns. We quietly begin carrying other people's as well. At first, it feels like kindness. Then, without really noticing, we can start measuring our success by whether the other person changes. The trouble is, that isn't actually something that we control. I find that incredibly uncomfortable to admit. During my recent stay with my parents in Northern Ireland, I found myself lying awake one morning, wondering whether I should change my flight and stay even longer. It was only then that I realised something I hadn't wanted to admit to myself. I wasn't really trying to solve the situation anymore. I was trying to avoid the feeling that came with accepting that I couldn't solve it. Those are two very different things. Accepting our limits can feel strangely like giving up, even when it isn't. I believe that's because we often confuse love with responsibility. We assume that if we love someone enough, we'll keep trying indefinitely. Yet life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the most painful situations are the ones where the practical solutions exist, support is available, people genuinely want to help, and still nothing moves forward. I could understand why my dad was frightened. I could understand why he resisted every suggestion we made. I could even understand why he saw the situation the way he did. Understanding him, however, wasn't changing the outcome. I've come to realise that compassion and responsibility aren't quite the same thing. Compassion allows us to stay open to another person's experience. Responsibility has limits. Once we begin carrying what belongs to someone else, something inside of us usually starts becoming very tired. Not all at once, just gradually, almost unnoticed. Perhaps that's why resentment can surprise us. It often isn't because we've stopped caring. It's because we've quietly been giving more than we realistically had to. I've experienced moments where I could feel that happening inside myself and I didn't like it. I didn't want frustration to become the strongest feeling in a relationship that was built on love. Sometimes recognizing that, however, is important in itself, because stepping back isn't always about protecting your time. Sometimes it's about protecting the relationship from becoming something neither of you wanted. I also believe there's guilt in this that we don't speak about very often. The guilt of returning to your own life while someone else's difficulties continue. The guilt of laughing, working, making plans, or simply carrying on when you know somebody you love is still inside something painful. It can feel as though moving forwards means leaving them behind. I've learned those aren't the same thing. You can still care deeply about someone without living inside their circumstances every minute of every day. You can still love someone without believing it's your job to carry what they cannot yet carry themselves. That doesn't make those decisions any easier. Sometimes they're heartbreaking. What has changed for me over the years is recognizing that there comes a point where continuing to pour everything you have into a situation isn't necessarily helping the other person anymore. It's simply costing you. Looking back now, I realise that flying back to Frankfurt, my home, was never the hardest part. The hardest part was accepting that I couldn't live another person's journey for them. Recognising where my responsibility ended didn't remove the sadness. It simply allowed me to stop fighting a battle that was never mine to win. That's one of the reasons personal support feels so important to me. Many women aren't looking for someone to tell them what decision to make. They're trying to untangle where compassion ends and over-responsibility begins, particularly when they're carrying responsibilities across countries, families, and relationships. That's a question many of us quietly live with. It's not whether we've cared enough. It's whether we've been asking ourselves to carry something that was never ours to carry in the first place.